Hey ho, my name is Jo. Welcome back to my channel. This is my introduction to fantasy. Hello there, my name is Jo. Welcome back to my channel. I've already recorded this video once. However, when I went to go record this, it wasn't in focus. So we're doing it again. I'm gonna try to fix this lighting too. Hold on. Let's try this. Is that any better? I don't know. We're playing around with lighting. We're playing around with a few things. So please bear with me, guys. Anyway, so hi there. I am Jo, and I am Fight Read Like a Girl, where we do everything bookish and polycystic ovarian syndrome related on this channel. Because if you are new, hi, how are you? I'm so happy you are here. If you are returning, well, welcome back. I'm happy you are still here, and I appreciate you guys bearing with me on this transition that I'm going through in my life right now with work, and I have a couple other personal things going on right now that I'm not going to discuss. But I really wanted to record this video and give you guys my personal introduction to fantasy. I've had this video requested a lot. And as an avid fantasy reader, I feel like I'm able to do this. So let's go ahead and get started. I have 5 books that I want to talk about into my introduction to fantasy. So let's go ahead and dive in and get started. Okay, so there's a wide range of books that I'm going to talk about with my fantasy. They're mostly young adult. There's 1 middle grade and 4 young adults. So I haven't found a adult fantasy that I can get into. So I definitely go more towards the young adult fantasy. I'm finding is definitely been one of those things. So this is mostly young adult and middle grade. So actually it's all young adult and middle grade. However, one of them goes from young adult to adult, so keep that in mind. We're going to go ahead. This is no particular order, but so I'm just going to start with the first book. The first book, and this is actually considered a series as well, the House of Night series by PC Cast and Kirsten Cast starts with the Marked series. I believe there's like 8 or 9 books into the series. So this one, you follow a girl named Zoe Redbird who is marked by the goddess of the night, Nyx, and she is going, or she has to go to this special school where she's learning all about her new power, learning about who she is as a person now that she's been marked. And she gets called a fledgling, which is what the new vampires are called. And it's vampire spelled with a Y, not an I. And in this one, she goes to the House of Night where she learns that she's not just no ordinary fledgling. She happens to become she's a special fledgling. And she was marked for a reason. And she's basically this one, she's trying to undergo and figure out why she was marked and why she was chosen. And the whole entire series, just her adventures in the House of Night, in her experience working with the House of Night and all that fun stuff. So the series is quite long, yes, and by the time you get to like the 4th or 5th book, you're like, okay, this is dragging on, I'm sick of this needs to end. But by the time you get to like 6 and 7, there have been so many spin-off series to this, and hold on, let me mute this. There have been so many spin-off series to this, and there's just, this world is humongous. Absolutely humongous. And I absolutely love this series so much. Definitely one of my all-time favorite series, and I would highly recommend this to anybody who wants to get into fantasy, because it's, how to explain it? It's set in our world, but then there is a whole other world on the outside of our world that has vampires in it, and they live amongst us in society, but we don't know that they live amongst us in society. So that's, I feel like, where the kind of the fantasy comes in, because vampires exist. The next one I have is a series that I read a long time ago. But it is one of my favorite series of all time, and I'm showing you the first book of it. But that is Evermore, the Immortal series by Alyson Noel. This one, you follow a girl named Evermore who gets into a car accident, loses her parents, is forced to go live with her aunt in California, and is basically put into this whole new world that she has no idea about. Just after her accident, she discovers that she has this power where she can touch somebody and get their whole life story. She can see auras, and she just tries to drown it all out. She becomes the outcast of the school, drowning everything out, putting her headphones in, putting her hood up, saying, screw you all, I'm not dealing with this shit at all, basically. And one day, this boy comes along and changes her whole world. Yes, it's similar to the Twilight, but it's done with more immortals, and I believe that this was truly very well done. And the tulips on the cover is a spoiler, so I'm not going to tell you what that is. But the best way to explain this is it's very, very well done. I really thoroughly enjoy this series because there's just so much to it, so much involvement in it, and it's a lot to take in. It's a really long series. It gets a little boring by the 4th book, but the 5th book picks back up, and I like how the series ended. I have my doubts about it, but I really did like how the series ended. I'm sorry if I keep looking off. I'm just making sure the video is still recording. I've had issues with this camera, so I'm sorry if I keep looking away. But anyway, I love this series, and I think it's a great introduction to fantasy. It is set in our world, but I believe it's fantasy because it deals with immortals and mortals, and it has so much other creatures and stuff involved in it. Alright, the next one I have is a series that I had to hunt down because I got the last book at a Dollar Tree, and it took me a while to hunt down the first book, the second book, and the third book. And I read this a year or so. I think it was about a year before I started my YouTube channel. I really want to reread it, but I just haven't got around to it yet. But that is the Seven Realms series by Cindy Williams Chima. This is the first one, The Demon King. Oh my goodness. So much in this book, okay? So you have dragons, you have demons, you have a whole fantasy world that sucks you in. You follow Raja, you follow Han, two different worlds, their worlds collide. And I feel like on that, need I say more? Like, this series is jam-packed with action. It's jam-packed with young adult love. It has just so much to it. From the first page, I was sucked into this series, okay? Even then, for this series, I think if I don't hook you by this first sentence, I'll be surprised. Han Astor squatted next to the streaming mud spring, praying that the thermal crust would hold his weight. I honestly really think that this series speaks for itself. This book speaks for itself. Does this one have a map? It does. The world that the Seven Realms is in, like, it's complicated, but everything gets broken down in here for you. And the adventure that these two go on, the way that they meet. You have Raja, who is in line for her own throne. You have Han, who's trying to figure out who he is. And it's just this book, this series, I cannot stress this series enough. I absolutely love this series, and I would recommend this to anybody who likes a good lengthy book, somebody who likes a really good series. The Grey Wolf Throne for me was a little boring, but I absolutely loved the whole series overall. And I definitely think you should read this series if you want to get into fantasy. Alright, so this next one, I feel like I don't have a reason to talk about it, but I also feel like I'm far enough into the series where I can talk about it. Actually, I just realized all these are series. What is up with fantasy and series? But I feel like I'm not far into it, so I can't talk about it. But I'm far enough into it, I can talk about it. And just because the world that this book is created and the fandom that this world is created, and if you haven't read this series or haven't even started this series, you're living underneath a rock. If you haven't heard of it, you're living underneath a rock. Get out from underneath your damn rock and pick up this series because you won't regret it. It's a fantastic series so far, what I've read. And the reason I haven't continued on with it is because the book that I'm currently on is a chunker, and I have this like really big fear of large books. Especially as of lately, I haven't been able to get myself to read a large book. However, the next series that I have is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. So, where to start with this one? Okay, so this book is about, or this series is about Selena, who is an assassin. Your first one, you have her going through a competition, trying to become, what is it, the King's Apprentice? No, the King's Champion, sorry. So, he is basically looking for that one person to be there for him. So he needs a champion. And Selena's your girl. And no, that's kind of a little spoiler, but Selena is the girl who becomes the champion. And the world that Sarah creates is absolutely amazing. And I don't know why I haven't finished this series, but I mean, again, I feel like I'm definitely far enough into it where I can talk about it, but I feel like I'm not far enough into it. But I have really loved this world, and I just cannot wait to dive back into it. I feel like at this point I might reread the books where I'm at, because I'm currently on the Queen of Shadows, so I definitely think I'm going to maybe start over because I love Sarah's writing. I really, really, truly do. She has amazing writing. She is more or less a young adult novelist. However, when you start getting into, which one was it? Was it Air of Fire? Yeah, it was Air of Fire. Starts to kind of pick up and go into adult, because when she starts off, she's 18. She's either 16 or 18. I can't remember which. But she's 18 years old, and it's definitely more young adult. So she starts growing up, and it becomes adult. So it's definitely one of those series that I wouldn't recommend it to a young adult, but I would definitely recommend maybe you start it when you're like 16. When you turn 17, you go to the next one, 18, so on and so forth. And I really love this series. I actually can't wait to finish it because it's been wonderful to me so far. And just big books scare me. That's why I haven't finished it yet. But I would definitely recommend this series to somebody who really loves the fantasy, because there's just so much that happens with like regards to fantasy. I can't explain really anything on why it's fantasy. However, The world is just incredible. Absolutely incredible. I love this world so much. And the last book that I have is a middle grade. I feel like I can't have my introduction to fantasy without this book. Some people don't even classify it as fantasy. I do. I classify this as fantasy because of the power that one of the characters has. But that is Inkheart by Coreinla Funke. So this book, you follow a girl named Maggie and her father. Her father is what Maggie calls a book doctor. So he goes around the world fixing books and whatnot. And he also has the special power, so if he reads books out loud, the story comes to life. Well, one day he read a book out loud, the story came to life, and her mother disappeared. So she's lived her whole entire life not knowing her mother, only knowing her in pictures and whatnot, because her mother has never been present in her life. And one day this random stranger shows up at their doorstep calling her father Mortimer, which she found a little weird. Or no, he was called Silvertongue. Yeah, he was called Silvertongue. And was he Silvertongue or was... Yes, okay. So Mortimer was called Silvertongue, and he referred to the other gentleman as Dustfinger. So Maggie got a little confused, like, okay, well, those are really weird names. Like, why would everybody have those names? Well, this random stranger completely turns Maggie's world upside down, and then next thing she's on this big grand adventure trying to put characters that were in a book, the same book that he read out loud 12 years ago, back into the book. So it embarks on this whole real crazy adventure. The next book goes on a little bit more of Dustfinger's story, and then the last one you go in a little bit more in depth into a character I'm not going to mention because that's a spoiler. But overall, this world is beautiful. Just it takes place in our world, but there's also the fantasy side to it, because if you have the power to read a book and have everything come to life, like outside of yourself or like in our world, please reach out to me, because you've got some amazing power and I would like to talk to you. But anyway, so this is definitely a really fantastic story. It is a middle grade story, so if you're not a middle grade person, you might not like this series, but I think if you want to get into fantasy, you should definitely give this one a try. Alright, so there you have it. My top 5 books that I think you should read if you want to get into fantasy. Fantasy, again, is one of my most favorite genres. I will always and forever love fantasy. It's a great way to escape the world. It was the way I used to escape the world when I was a kid. And there's so many other fantasy books that I could talk about. If you guys are at all curious on what I would recommend for any fantasy, please leave a comment down below. And if you read a certain book and you want to know what you would like for fantasy, I would love to answer something like that. So please leave a comment down below and telling me what kind of fantasy you're looking for, and I might be able to help you. If you haven't done so already, I hope you will hit subscribe to join my cute little family here, because we try to have fun, and I do random things sometimes, so I hope you guys will join me. And I also hope you guys will hit like and comment on this video, just to let me know what your picks are on fantasy, if you enjoyed these, or if there's any of these books that you have read, please let me know. I would love to know your thoughts on them. As always, every book that I mentioned is always listed down below, so you can go check them out for yourself. I hope you guys have but thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you next time. Bye! And none of... Oh, please don't fall. Everything just shifted. Oh my goodness. Okay, don't fall. Please don't fall. Everything literally just shifted. Okay. We're not falling today, please. That would be great. Everything seriously just shifted. We're all good. Okay, we're good. Sit. Stay. Okay. Oh my god, why? Stay. Stay. Thank you. If you haven't done so already, I hope you would hit subscribe to enjoy my cute little family. To enjoy? No. Ugh.